10 minutes?
15.
Okay. All right. So here's the thing. I love this movie. Not only is it, I get it, the four E's, it's educational, it's engaging, at times it's exciting, and it's empathetic. And it's a great job to see what you've done with this, and more people need to see this because this is not anything that's a secret. There's just a lot of people that may be embarrassed by it, but it goes back into life and health style. So, congratulations for putting your body online, you out there. That's not easy. Talk about that.
Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I think, when I set out to make this film 5 years ago, I had been struggling with this illness, ulcerative colitis, for 10 years. And I think when I was first diagnosed with the illness, I faced a lot of embarrassment around my symptoms and around having this condition. But after 10 years of suffering, the embarrassment kind of faded away. And what took its place was a bit of angst and frustration. And I think that's the place that I was coming from when I set out to make this film. I was ready to talk about my experience. I was ready to, explore new avenues of healing and have these kinds of conversations.
I look at it this way: a lot of my female friends, I've always been there for no reason that I should have been there, going to their doctor's appointments. I won't say who they were, anything like that, obviously, but it's when, how's my Botox look? How's my butt implants look? How's my breast implants look? I'm like, why am I here? Because if they trusted my judgment. So I've always been that person that understands what a lot of my female friends go through. To this day, every day, they're telling me what kind of health problems they're having. And that's interesting. And so what I've been doing is like I start telling them about your movie because they're having issues like that. And I keep telling them it's about the food that you're eating, the climate that's changed. And they're not really thinking about those things. It's very interesting. What say you?
Yeah, I think that, since coming out with this film, I get people reaching out to me all the time about various bowel related issues that they are facing. And I'm just realizing it is so incredibly common. People just don't talk about it. It's not polite conversation, but maybe amongst close friends or your own support group, it is something that we should be talking about a bit more. It relieves some of the stress and anxiety and shame around it that we feel. And that shame isn't good for you mentally, physically, health wise.
And a lot of that, some of that does come from anxiety and depression. Everything, as I tell everybody, everything is connected these days. There is no separation. And again, this is one of my favorite documentaries, and I tell people this is the year of indie films and documentaries. Congratulations to all those people out there that have done that. And every week on my live show, which is at 2.4 million views and counting, I'm talking about the same movies that I've seen, whether I saw it at Dances with Films, the Greek Film Festival, Jewish Film Festival, through MPRM. These movies need to be seen because they are that important. So congratulations to you, and talk about your struggle of getting this done. This could not have been easy to raise money for this.
Well, it took us 5 years to make the film, not because
That's
we
pretty
spent
good.
the
It takes
entire
an
time.
average of 7 years to make a documentary. So yours was good.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of start and stops. We were really lucky that to start out with was a patient with ulcerative colitis who became obsessed with this topic of fecal transplant, and out of my own interest, spent a lot of time researching the top researchers who were talking about this treatment. And I was really lucky that when I reached out to these people for an interview, pretty much everybody I reached out to said yes. So we were just granted these really incredible interviews right off the jump that kind of allowed us to keep going with this film. There were starts and stops, and I was doing the treatment myself along the way. So that took a long time to document because you don't know if it's working after 2 weeks with all kind of health related things. You might think it's working after 2 weeks, and after 6 months you're not quite sure. It takes a while to really see in hindsight, okay, I think that that did help me in some way.
Talk about the relationship of you, um, how that factors in. That's not easy conversation. I was so happy when he said yes, because certain people may not be on board. They don't understand it, but that's true love. I was like, good for them as a couple. That's really important. And I want more people to understand what that process is like. And again, I'm that person that's never been married. I don't have any kids, and I'm retiring next year. I'm fine. But in general, a lot of my friends, specifically female friends, are not fine, and that concerns me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, my husband in the film was my stool donor. And he's amazing. First of all, he's just somebody who's not squeamish about this topic, which is poop and fecal transplants. So when I asked him to be my donor, there was nothing about it that grossed him out, which I'm very grateful for. That's just his personality. On top of that, he's just a really good person to have in your support system because he wanted to see me healthy. We went into this knowing, it may work, it may not, but he was kind of willing to do whatever to help me get control over my condition.
Can you talk about what's the ratio of women or men that have this? That part I don't know.
Ulcerative colitis, I think, is more common in women. And I think autoimmune diseases in general are more common in women.
Interesting. Is
Mm-hmm.
there I love the doctors that you had there, especially the Australian doctor. I mean, I good for him, and I guess that's why I love Australia and I love my friends over there. And I can't wait to get back because it's like they're on a whole nother level, it seems like, of that. Talk about what he said and not to give too much away, because I'm sure that made you happy, didn't it?
Yeah, so his name is Dr. Thomas Barodi. He's based in Australia. He's a gastroenterologist who has performed more fecal transplants than anyone in the world. Here in North America, I'm based in Canada, but Canada and the US, we follow kind of similar protocols. It's still under investigation, which is fair. I mean, we need to have more answers before we start performing fecal transplants on people for whatever cause. But in Australia, there has been more leniency. So they have been able to do more kind of one-off fecal transplants on individual patients who are interested. So because of that, he's done a lot of them. He's very knowledgeable and he's very encouraging of patients. He understands the research part, but he also understands that there are patients who right now are suffering. So telling them simply, you got to wait 10 more years isn't always an option for people who are suffering right now. And that's, as a patient, all you want to hear because you don't get that very often from doctors, people who understand, the struggle that you're going through right now.
What do you know now that you didn't know 2, 3 years ago? And how did pandemic affect you, your health? Was there any change, any difference? Because I figured there might be have been.
Well, everybody had different experiences with the pandemic. I had a very positive experience with the pandemic because if you watch the movie, you'll see I was at a place with my illness where I was facing anxiety around trigger situations, which had to do with being in public. When everything shut down and I all of a sudden was not in social situations, I was not traveling, a lot of my triggers kind of went away overnight. So I was able to kind of live in a space for several months where the bathroom was always close by. So I didn't have to stress out. It made me realize that, a lot of my symptoms had to do with my stress and anxiety because I was so afraid of being embarrassed or humiliated. Um, but yeah, when there was no one to humiliate myself in front of, that kind of went away, and I was able to heal in a way that I wasn't before.
I first knew about a little bit of this. My friend, who I would take care of, she very smart, intelligent person, still to this day. But when she came down with Crohn's, and as she started to gain weight, I could see something was changing. But I didn't know about this at that point, where she would run to the bathroom, and she was a clean freak, so she wouldn't use the bathroom if it was always dirty, and most bathrooms tend to be dirty, unfortunately. And it was one of these things, she might spend an hour and a half in there because of what she had. And people, not a lot of people knew that, nor was she comfortable telling a lot of people, but I knew. So, it was very interesting studying that, not knowing this. Now knowing this, I put a lot of these things together and I tell them, you need to be checked for this and try this and watch this movie. And this is why I love movies. A lot of movies are like remedy factors to things that people need to know, and they never go away, isn't that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is important to talk about these things. When it's an illness that's embarrassing or shameful, we tend not to. I mean, there's a film in the scene where my doctor says, your life isn't severely impaired, is it? And in my head, I go through all the ways that my life is severely impaired. But to him, I say, no, I guess my life isn't severely impaired. We tend to downplay our symptoms. And doing that even to your doctor is not helping anybody. We need to learn to kind of speak up and seek support wherever we can.
Absolutely. What do you suggest you love the audience to take away from this film?
I would like the audience to gain a better understanding of what it means to suffer from this kind of chronic illness or any GI related illness. I think it's really common, and it is something that we can laugh about. People like poop jokes and people want to kind of put a humorous spin on it, and that's fine, but understand that people are also really suffering and being more empathetic toward that. And I also want people to understand a bit more about fecal transplant. I mean, we're still in the research phase. I'm not saying it's a cure all at this point at all, but the research is worth paying attention to. It's not pseudoscience or snake oil. There's something very exciting happening in this field of research that I think more people should be aware of and not turn away from it just because it's gross or new or unknown.
So being in Canada, was it easier, do you think, getting what you needed for this? Because I don't know if they're really acknowledging it in the States. That's really my question.
Canada and the US are the same on this issue. You can't really get access to fecal transplant right now. I shouldn't say that. You can get access to fecal transplant for a gut illness called C. difficile. That is becoming more commonplace. In fact, in the US, you guys have a pill coming out, an FDA approved pill coming out to treat C. difficile with fecal transplant. But when it comes to Crohn's, colitis, and other conditions, your best bet is to join a clinical trial. If you don't live near a clinical trial, a doctor can't really help you do this. They're not allowed to. It's kind of illegal.
What do you think on the documentary now? Where does it go now? And this is something that I'll always be talking about to certain people in general, because again, it's a great documentary. Good movie is a good movie, and it never goes away.
I think the research on this is going to be changing so quickly and rapidly. Um, but I think that this is a good starting point to have people have conversations about this procedure. I think at this point, I hate using the word controversial because, like I said, I think that there's real promise to this procedure. But at this point, should it be a drug? Should the FDA be controlling stool? Should patients have more access to it? There are a lot of questions that are going to need to be answered in the very near future. So I think this film is a good way of kind of opening people's eyes to this and to start having those conversations.
How is your family with it now? And the first time that you told them, I would love to know the real initial shock of that might have been, because you're just looking for help and you need to start telling. After a while, it's like you don't care. You just want to get help. I can only imagine what that was like, because that scene with your brother, because I had to watch it twice, just really for that scene. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think when you have family members who see what you have gone through, I mean, these are people who have traveled with me, who have seen me having to run to the bathroom in very unfortunate circumstances. I think I was really lucky to have a really strong support system of people who are, kind of researching right alongside me and kind of going, yeah, I support you. If you think this makes sense, let's try it.
And I'll ask you questions. Can you give your social media links so people can go and follow this film, see what how do they follow you? Because I'd be interested in following what happens to you now, so I can bring more people to say this is the person you need to follow, if that makes sense. And the release date of this movie.
Sure. So our documentary website is designershitdocumentary.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at designershit. And then from there, you'll get updates on our film. But we're having a 3-day free viewing window from September 22nd to September 26th. So that will be your best chance to watch it. I mean, you can follow me on Instagram too. My name is Saffron Cassaday, but my life is very boring. I just hang out with my kid, and I'm living a nice, healthy life now, free of drama, thankfully.
Congratulations on that. And September 26th is my birthday, so that's my live show. So I'll be talking about designer shit on my birthday.
Oh, no way. I'm September 24th, Libras.
That's right.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
we're doing our event, your birthday, September 24th. Our birthday's 26th. I had for the Nashville Film Festival. They gave me an all access pass. I never even asked for it, but I'm going to be talking about stuff like this. So I've got 2 women down there that are having problems. And again, Southern women are really, when you're by themselves, they'll tell you everything. When they're out there, they're like, everything's fine and everything's not fine. Very
Right.
interesting.
Totally.
Saffron, thank you so much for this. This is really good. And again, I really love this movie. This is one of the movies I'll be talking about forever because, again, this is what people need to see.
Well, thank you so much. It was so nice chatting with you.
Yeah. And one of these days, I got to get you on our live show talking about just your career in this because I would
I
like to
would
keep
love
this
that.
going. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.